Whoa, an intro? Where the hell did that come from? Well, I'll tell you where it came from. Yeah, I made it in about 20 minutes last night on some random template I found online, so I hope you like it. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the intro, we're here to talk about F1 Fantasy, and it feels like it's kind of Christmas Eve fantasy managers because it's the first deadline of the season coming up in just a few hours, basically. So it's time to discuss, locking it, almost time to lock in those teams and discuss final thoughts on F1 fantasy team selection. Now, I've got 3 teams up here at the moment, which are kind of quite a wide range of different things going on, apart from the common denominator, which is Max Verstappen as the 2 times, which I'm kind of fairly set on at the moment. I'm sure a few of you season managers, particularly anyone who played last year, will be drawn to Logan Sargent to make an appearance in one of my teams. Please don't unsubscribe when you see Logan Sargent, because there's a reason he's in there. Okay, just hear me out when we get to it. But yeah, these are kind of the teams I'm looking at. Like I said, I can tweak it here or there. For example, if we go into team number 1, we could, as an example, again, I might as well talk about Logan Sargent straight off the bat, actually, because we could get Daniel Ricciardo in and have to bring in Logan Sargent as a result. I think Ricciardo is a slightly better pick than Sonoda, so you could kind of justify it. And also the Saubers, in this sort of price range, when we're stuck with one budget driver remaining that we don't want, it's really rubbish pickings. Like Bottas, Sauber look pretty dire, to be honest. The only reason Guan Yu Zhou is even in my team is because he might be good for a few overtakes. And then the Hazes are potentially an option over in this region, because there are some positive signs coming in terms of their race pace and everything. So you could argue that you might want Haz in there, so you could sort of sit back on Sonoda and then pick a Haz, just Hulkenberg, for example. So yeah, you could kind of go with a team like this and hope the Hazes have sorted out their degradation issues, but I'm not convinced by it. So I have moved off the RBs a little bit in this build and gone into Aston Martin, just because the power of Fernando Alonso, that pull of Fernando, is really strong, and I think he's got maybe not quite a podium opportunity there. The race pace in the Aston Martin definitely does look good, though. It's pretty much on par with the likes of Ferrari and Mercedes, which is why I've kind of gone for them in this build, because I just feel, as much as the RBs seem underpriced, 8.5 million, they are 8.5 million, aren't they? Didn't get that wrong. Yeah, 8.5 million. And they do seem underpriced, but Aston Martin at just a few million more, I've kind of changed my mind a little bit about it after the practice sessions and thinking the Fernando Alonso factor, the fact that he could top 5 this race, there's a genuine consideration that he could top 5 it and bump up Aston Martin's points a little bit, maybe increase a little bit of value. It's really tight behind the Red Bulls, who probably are sandbagging a little bit, if you want my opinion. Behind the Red Bulls, you've got the McLarens, you've got the Ferraris, you've got the Mercedes, and the Aston Martins are kind of in that mix as well. Aston Martin at 13.6, if they're in the mix, and particularly Fernando Alonso potentially on par or even beating in the race the likes of Ferrari, Mercedes, maybe even the McLaren, then why are we paying 19 or 20 million for the Mercedes or the Ferraris? Why don't we save 6 or 7 million and put the Aston Martins in and go full circle back to where we were 12 months ago, and we're going Red Bull and Aston Martin all over again. So and only 19% ownership is actually really quite low, so I don't think many people have really caught on to the Aston Martins being that great an asset this year, probably because the RBs are so cheap and people want to save the 5 million, which was my thinking literally a couple of days ago before the practice sessions. But now we've had the practice sessions, I'm thinking a little bit more Aston Martin are kind of a little bit more juicy and appealing, and I really like this team because you got Max Verstappen 2 times, which is just kind of given. The Red Bull Racing still look like the best team. There's lots of talk about them sandbagging and they haven't turned their engines up, and they're going to be half a second or more down the road per lap than the rest of the teams come tomorrow. Easy qualifying on pole from Verstappen, etc. So I do anticipate the Red Bulls to be the best constructor, and Perez had looked pretty decent in the practice sessions, which is quite a big factor in wanting to go with the Red Bulls. So I feel like this is kind of the front runner in terms of where I'm at the moment, give or take kind of the budget options. I do like it because it covers the best team, and we don't. If I go back to the other teams for a minute, if these other builds that I've got on here, for example, Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren and Ferrari in Team 2 and Team 3, the truth is we just don't quite know who the second or third best teams are. Or it looks pretty clear that Red Bulls are going to be the best team again, so having them in your team kind of makes sense. And then let's for example say we go for this second team, which looks pretty good to us, nice balance to this team. Let's say we go for it. The Mercedes and the Ferraris are kind of in that bunch behind the Red Bull. In fact, McLarens have actually got slightly better race pace according to the data that's come off FP2 anyway. So you could arguably see, and the fact that the likes of Alonso could even be competing up here with Mercedes and Ferrari, we could see the Mercedes and Ferraris P5, 6, 7, 8. Like, we actually just don't know. We don't know for sure. I don't think it'll be quite that bad. I think they will be fighting for the podium, but everyone's fighting for the podium, it seems. The McLarens are there. The Red Bulls are not going to go anywhere. The Red Bulls are probably going to be in the top. Well, Verstappen's probably going to win. And then Perez looking pretty strong. Maybe a podium for him. And then, where's the space for everyone else? McLarens look good in terms of race pace. And then Mercedes are looking phenomenal. All of a sudden, Hamilton's saying this is a real race car at long last. The Ferrari's race pace also looks solid. Fernando Alonso's in there. Like, there's just not enough space for everyone to get on the podium. So if we go and split the difference a little bit and go Mercedes and Ferrari, we could see ourselves with drivers that are finishing like P5, P6, P7 or further back. So this build, although it looks like really nice balance, and I do still like it, I'm just not convinced that it's the right thing because we don't know enough about what's going on in the Mercedes and Ferraris. We've got some more information today, no doubt, but we just don't know enough. And what we do know, looking at build one again, what we do know is that the Red Bulls do definitely look like the number one team, and the Aston Martins are kind of there or thereabouts, and at a much more discounted price than the likes of Ferrari and Mercedes and McLaren. The Aston Martin suddenly become much more appealing. I did say I was going to talk about Logan Sargent actually, didn't I? I'll talk about him very briefly. Let's put. He does enable in this build to go back to Daniel Ricciardo, and I don't think. Call me crazy. Do it. Type it in the comments right now. Call me crazy, but I don't think Logan Sargent's necessarily that bad of a pick. Like last year, he had a shocking season, admittedly. Let's think back the year before last, Tsunoda. Hear me out. Tsunoda had a terrible season 2 years ago in terms of fantasy, at least. He finished, I can't remember exactly what the points were and everything, but he had a terrible season. He was averaging really, really low. It was rubbish. And no one considered him early on in the season because of the terrible season he had the year before. And he actually started off pretty decent at the beginning of the season and then finished off that season as the best budget pick that you could pick. Now, I'm not saying Logan Sargent's going to necessarily just jump in and be like equivalent of Alex Albon, but in the practice sessions, Sargent's actually looked quite decent. The Williams, in terms of race pace, doesn't look terrible. So I would say open your eyes a little bit, open your mind a little bit more to the possibility of Logan Sargent. Like I say, please don't hate me for saying this, because I feel like a lot of people will just think I'm crazy. They will. But I would just say, I would urge, just think about it. Just think about it. I know, there's the chance, the DNF of possibility of Sargent is definitely probably higher than the likes of like Bottas or something. If you wanted to play it completely safe, just ignore what's going on down here in the budget region. Play it safe. Probably pick a Bottas. He'll be at the back somewhere. Keep it safe. But yeah, I would say Sargent is a possibility for sure. I'm going to have a quick look at Team 3 as well, because like I said, the McLarens in terms of race pace are looking like they are potentially second best team at the moment. And this is where, the McLarens have kind of been playing down their chances a little bit. And but they've come out and they've actually kind of stomped through the practice sessions. They did really well in FP1, FP2. Norris had a few bits of traffic in FP2, so didn't quite get such a representative time. But Piastri, apparently rumours on Twitter that I've seen are that he wasn't on that lower fuel for that longer run, where he was only a couple of tenths per lap off the Red Bulls. If he was a couple of tenths off the Red Bulls, and everyone else was sort of 3 or 4 tenths off the Red Bulls, the McLaren, that kind of puts the McLaren in P2 in the constructor. So having them in a build like this alongside the Ferraris is also kind of appealing. Again, Logan Sargent makes an appearance here just because the constructors are expensive. But again, this build is a bit of a gamble. We are gambling effectively. So I'll go back to the 3 teams again, and like I say, you can kind of tweak this one way or the other. You could go back to the original build that I had down here, where you had the RBs back in here. This is like the build from my team selection video. You go Lance Stroll, then you could probably upgrade this Bottas or whatever to Daniel Ricciardo and kind of go all in a little bit more on the RBs, have a little bit of Aston Martin coverage, even albeit it's Lance Stroll, and then you've got the best construction, the best driver. So this is my team from like a couple of days ago that I was talking about, and I still like this. It's just the Fernando Alonso factor kind of makes me think the Aston Martins might be slightly underpriced. So I kind of like going with this build with the Aston Martin potentially. Like I say, in terms of budget options, it might be Tsunoda and Bottas, or it might be Ricciardo and Sargent or whatever. I am a bit scared about putting Sargent in. I'll admit I'm a bit scared about Sargent, but this video isn't about Sargent. Sargent's kind of the least of my worries. The main focus I want is to gain the points. Maybe in that respect, Sargent should be off the menu because of the DNF risk, but don't write him off. he's come back. He's a bit hencher this year. He looks a bit more focused, and the Williams, like I say, race pace might not be so shabby. So yeah, in terms of where I'm at, I think I am slightly leaning towards Team 1 over here on the left of your screen, because there's just too much uncertainty. It's so close behind the Red Bulls that we don't know. There's no clear, it could very easily be Mercedes, it could very easily be McLaren, it could very easily be Ferrari, and like I say, Aston Martin are sniffing around there. We just don't know, and the practice sessions aren't just enough. We need a couple of proper races on a couple of different tracks, which we're going to have, of Bahrain followed up by Jeddah, a very different track, much more high speed, which admittedly may well favour the McLaren. So that kind of makes me think, maybe I should go with the McLaren Ferrari build over there in Team 3, because then I'm kind of set up for Jeddah with the McLarens. But then I'm without the Red Bull constructor. So you can't have everything. And with the budget this year and the way everything's priced, it seems like we can't really have anything. And it does seem like a bit of a boring team to go with, just going Verstappen, Red Bull, Aston Martin. It literally feels like I've gone back 12 months and we're going back into that kind of build again. But that's just very, very slightly where I'm leaning at the moment. Like I say, we've got FP3 still to come. And like I say, I'm going to delve a bit more after I've recorded this and spend a bit of time tomorrow looking into a bit more like what the drivers are actually saying in terms of their interviews and stuff, and picking up as much as I can off Twitter and everything, and whatever you guys can say in the comments as well, if anyone's got any useful suggestions on that. The other thing I suppose I should touch on is the F1 Fantasy Tools kind of build. If I just haven't got it available right this second, but the F1 Fancy Tools were like kind of favouring, they're still favouring like a Ferrari Red Bull thing with like Perez as the 2 times, something like this. And then you probably upgrade one of these guys to like a Ricardo or something. So something like this. This is kind of what the F1 Fancy Tools is favouring. And admittedly, again, I like it, but I just can't really pull myself away from the 2 times on Max Verstappen. I just can't do it. He's so consistent. He's so good. He's so likely to win most races. And even if he doesn't win, his like lack of DNFing is phenomenal. I just trust. And a lot of this F1 fantasy is about trust. And I trust Max Verstappen. Therefore, a build like this, as much as it looks good and having 2 big constructors looks appealing, I'm just still not quite sold on it. And so that's why I'm kind of not going down that route at the moment. And I am kind of looking at all 3 teams here with Max Verstappen with the 2 times. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Like I said, I've got a bit more time to think about it. And I'll be on 1 hour before qualifying for a live stream. So please come and join me, where I'll be deciding finally exactly who I'm going for to start the season with. So yeah, come join me if you're able to. I'm aware that not everyone is able to, so that's why I thought I'd throw in a final thoughts video. So that's it for me for now. This is a nice kind of, well, by my standards, quite a short, snappy video. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's a bit more information, just kind of feed into your fantasy brain for the evening before the big deadline. So yeah, come join me if you can. 3 o'clock UK time, 1 hour before qualifying kicks off. Yeah, start those engines, lock in those teams. Hopefully see you tomorrow. If not, then say hi in the comments. Hi and bye.